All right, welcome to the Then and Now Bible study, where we go and talk about what the scriptures meant then to the men who wrote it and to the people that received it, and take that then meaning and bring the application into now. So again, we've been in the book of Mark, and we are still in Mark chapter 1, and we're going to continue right on in with the rest of this. And let's not waste any time, because I don't believe in wasting your time. And let's jump into it. All right, here we go. All right, we're over here in verse 9, and I changed my pointer up to this big goofy yellow thing so y'all could hopefully see it a little better. All right, as soon as they left the synagogue, Jesus went with James and John to the house of Simon Andrew. Simon's mother-in-law was in bed with a fever, and they immediately told Jesus about her. So he went to her, he took her hand and helped her up, and the fever left her, and she began to wait on them. So in this passage, one of the things that Mark has been telling us some of the very specific, or the kind of the general ways that Jesus has been healing. He's just been saying, hey, he's healed people, and he has also he has told us how the specific way that he casts his demon out of this guy in the synagogue. But what he hasn't done is give us specific ways that he heals. And here, he goes in and gives us this very kind of intimate look at this one particular healing, and it's the healing of Peter's mother-in-law. So, hey, this lets us know that Peter was married, likely the only disciple that was married. And also, it kind of gives us more of this intimate look into how Jesus was healing. And this is something that Mark wanted to put in for a reason. Again, with the book of Mark, if it is in here, it is in here for a reason. Mark is writing his gospel to be condensed and concise. And so if it's there, it is there for a very specific reason. And the reason that Mark goes into more detail about this specific healing is because, this has to do with one of his disciples. This has to do with Peter. Mark was likely Mark was a disciple of Peter. And so when we're looking at the book of Mark, this is likely going to be Peter's account of this stuff that Mark learned from Peter. And so as Mark is writing this, it is likely that Peter, in some ways, may have been kind of the advisor, possibly like what we would call an editor of Mark's gospel. We go back to Irenaeus, kind of the first lesson that we taught about this, and Irenaeus really felt like Peter had a lot to do with the gospel of Mark. And so this is about Peter's mother-in-law, and they're about to see Jesus heal a bunch of people. They've seen Jesus cast out a demon. Now, this miracle hits really close to home. This miracle is in Peter's own household. And the four disciples that we have at this time, they're likely all friends. Like Peter and Andrew, of course, are brothers. And then John and James are also in that same fishing community. They know each other, and they likely know Peter's mother-in-law. So this is a person that they all know, and now this miracle affects them on a personal level. It's done in the privacy of his own home. And something else that Mark is really wanting to point out here is the manner in which Jesus does this miracle. At that time, the mystical healers of that time, whether they were Jewish mystical healers or whether they were Greco-Roman mystical healers, or kind of a mixture of these type things, they would come in and they would have all of these different practices, and they'd I mean, kind of like what you think of a witch doctor. They would have these, ingredients that they had, things that they would recite. If they were Jewish, prayers that they would recite, and just a very formal, certain way. And the healer had to know exactly how to do these mystical type things to be able to actually heal somebody. And so Mark, and all of Mark's audience would have known that. All right, all of Mark's audience would have known or been familiar with the mystical healers of the time and what they had to do to actually heal somebody. And so whenever Jesus comes in and he basically just, I mean, it says that, yeah, he went in, or so he went to her, took her by the hand and helped her up. And the fever left her. So there's not a whole lot of, there's no like ooga booga witchcraft type stuff going on. It's just the power of Jesus radiating through him, of just being able to do this. And so again, this is something, well, if we go, why did Mark spend time in his narrative to point this out? That's why. Because he is wanting to expose to his hearers exactly the type of power that Jesus has. He is not relying on incantations. He's not relying on certain speeches. He's not relying on certain practices. He has a divine power that comes from within, where he can basically put his hands on somebody, sit them up in the bed, and the fever leaves them and they are healed. Absolutely miraculous. And so Mark takes a moment to let his hearers know this. All right. So that was the message then. All right. So what is the message now? How do we take that thing that was then and that bring that application into now? Because again, we don't go to witch doctors, to get healed. We don't go to seers and that kind of stuff. We go to actual doctors. The comfort we can take from that is no matter what it is that is ailing you, whether it is a physical sickness, whether it is an emotional sickness, whether it is financial troubles, whether it's whatever it is, we can take confidence that in a moment, with a thought, if Jesus desires to, if God desires to, he can take those things from us. It don't matter if your entire body is ate up with cancer, with a thought from Jesus' mind. If he desires to, if he wills to, he can take that from you. He can heal you of that. God is still in the business of healing. And I know as Baptists, we kind of get hinky about that, about miraculous healing. But God is he's still God. He's still in the healing business. Believe it. Whatever it is that we are in need of, if God wills to do it, he can just do it. There's no ceremony that we really have to do. There's no incantation. There's no special prayers. It's just a prayer from your heart. It will suffice. And hey, this is the thing. Is it God's will? If it's God's will, it will happen. If it's not, God, give me the understanding to be okay with it. Give me the understanding to know that this is your will and trust your will, and know that you do want what is best for me, even in hardship, even in hard times. Man, that's the application that we can take from the scripture and bring it into our here and now. Jesus is powerful, and he is still in this business, and he doesn't have to do all manner of witchamaroes to be able to do this thing. He can just do it. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, so let's continue on. Verse 32. That evening after sunset, people brought Jesus all the sick and demon-possessed. The whole town gathered at the door, and Jesus healed many who had various diseases. He also drove out many demons, but he would not allow the demons to speak because they knew who he was. So why is after sunset important? The Jewish day goes from sunset to sunset. All right. So it had been the Sabbath. All right. So the Sabbath started on Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock at sunset, roughly, to Saturday afternoon at sunset. That was the Jewish Sabbath. So that evening after sunset, when it becomes the next day, it's no longer the Sabbath. Now everybody starts flooding to him. So they were at the synagogue when they saw Jesus drive out this demon. And because it's the Sabbath, they are so intertwined into this, this law, this rule, that they wait until evening. They wait until the Sabbath is over. Now they start bringing that evening. They as soon as they can, they gather up their sick and their demon possessed, and they start bringing them to Jesus for healing. And they gathered around the door of where he was at, and Jesus healed them. And Jesus drove out demons. And Mark gives this little detail that he didn't allow the demons to speak because the demons knew who he was. He didn't want demons proclaiming him. He didn't want demons speaking on his behalf. The enemy has a way of giving you some truths and getting you to accept the truths to then bring in the lies. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of truth. And now after you accept this little bit of truth from me, I'm going to start bringing in the lies. The enemy is really good about that. Why did Mark bring it up? That's another thing. Why Mark has, as we're going to see as we go through here, Jesus, especially at the beginning of his ministry, kind of does this almost like secret Messiah type thing, where he doesn't really, for whatever reason, want people to know that he is the Messiah. He is trying to allow people to, through what they're seeing of him, the miracles, the teaching, the signs and wonders of what they're experiencing. I believe Jesus is wanting people to figure this out. So he's not wanting demons to promote it, and he's not wanting, as we're going to continue seeing, he's going to tell people, hey, don't tell anybody. It was like this was knowledge that he was in the beginning of his ministry trying to keep to himself. And why Jesus did it is we're not exactly sure. While Mark is doing it and why Mark is highlighting it, makes a little bit more sense. And it goes with the literary device that Mark is trying to do. Again, Mark is taking us on a journey of going with the disciples as the disciples realize exactly who Jesus is and what Jesus is about. And so it's important for Mark to be like, yeah, these demons didn't proclaim who he was and exactly who he was, so that the disciples weren't getting the full explanation of, oh, this is the Messiah. That's not only the Messiah like the military leader Messiah. He's the one that's come to take away the sins of people. That is why Mark is not including this, because again, this is the journey that we're going on with the disciples. Verse 35. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up and left the house and went off to pray in a solitary place, where he prayed. Simon and his companions went to look for him, and when they found him, they exclaimed, "Everyone is looking for you." Jesus replied, "Let us go somewhere else, to the nearby villages, so I can preach there also. That is why I have come." So he traveled throughout Galilee, preaching in the synagogues and driving out demons. All right, so painting the picture. At evening, when Sabbath is over, now everybody bum rushes the house where Jesus is at. Jesus likely heals and casts out demons likely till late at night. And then early the next morning, before sunrise, he gets up and goes off to a solitary place. And this word for solitary place is not like kind of out of sight, out of mind. He goes out in the wilderness. He goes out into the desert where it is legitimately hard to find him. So then the next morning, as people get up and more people begin bringing the sick and the affirmed to Jesus to be healed, Jesus is nowhere to be found. All right, and so then it says that Simon and his companions, Peter and his companions, went out to look for him. Word "look," whenever it's translated, is the same connotation of like whenever a prisoner escaped and the wardens or the prison guards were searching for an escaped convict. Like they are searching intently, trying to find Jesus. Like they have basically a manhunt for Jesus while he is off praying in a solitary place. And then they find him. And Peter says, "Hey, everyone is looking for you, man. What are you doing?" And so let's unpack this a little bit. Again, Mark's not going to put it in here unless it's important. He is not wasting ink. He's not wasting paper. None of the Gospels, or I say that like other Gospels do, none of the Gospels are just putting stuff in there. It is all important. But again, why did Mark put this in here? Well, once again, Mark is wanting to show, so we've seen the divinity of Jesus, of the healings, of the way he heals, that he doesn't have to do incantations or anything like that. And we see the divinity of Jesus. Now we're going to see some of the humanity of Jesus, that he prays, that even though he is God, he still prays to God. That's interesting. That you ever think about that? That he's 100% God. Why does he need to pray to God? Well, he's 100% man too. And that really should challenge you for your own personal prayer time. Like, seriously, if Jesus needs to go pray, you do too, and I do too, okay? We definitely do. If Jesus, who is 100% God, needs to go and go into a solitary place to go spend time in prayer, how much more do we need to do that? A lot more, because we're not 100% God. We are just 100% human. So we definitely need to spend that time in prayer. And this is one of the things Mark's trying to point out, that his power and his discernment came because he's God, but also because he was in communion with God. He was praying to God. He wasn't a magician. This wasn't magic powers that he had. This is God in him, being God and working through him. And he felt the need to go off to a solitary place and pray. That's crazy. That's awesome. Peter goes out looking for him. Peter and his companions go out looking for him. They make a search party. And it says that Jesus replied to him, "Let us go somewhere else." Oh, imagine being Peter. All right, imagine like one day you're fishing, right? You're tending your nets, and all of a sudden this rabbi comes by and he says, "Hey, follow me. I'm going to make you fishers of men." And for whatever reason, you do this crazy thing where you just set down your nets and you go follow Jesus. And then a couple of your buddies do the same thing. Your brother and a couple of your buddies do the same thing. And now y'all are following this rabbi, right? And so then you go into, the synagogue, and you're going to hear your rabbi teach. And all of a sudden he is teaching things that like nobody's ever heard before. He's getting feathers riled up. Next thing you know, some dude with a demon comes out. He casts out the demon. He goes to your mother-in-law's house, heals her, and then starts healing all these people. And people are coming from all around, and it's just wild. All right? And you're just thinking, man, what? Bro, this is crazy. And this guy that has called me to be his disciple, what? This is nuts. And man, we're about to set up shop here in Capernaum. It's on the main road as we're going out, and it's a traveling center, and we're all going to be famous. And this rabbi is going to teach us how to do these things. And oh man, this is about to be awesome. And we're about to set up shop here in Capernaum, and the whole world, all of Judea is going to come here to see us and to see this this Messiah. And you wake up the next morning to just expect a day full of just bringing people to your new rabbi and allowing him to heal them. And you wake up and he's gone. He's MIA, right? And so now, and everybody's here to get healed. And they're looking at you like, hey, where's your rabbi who can heal us? And so you're like, all right, guys, we got to go find him. And so then you start tracking him down and you finally find him. And you're like, hey, Jesus, got a whole bunch of people back there that want to be healed. And instead of Jesus going, all right, yeah, let's go back and let's take care of that, Jesus goes, nah, we're going somewhere else. We're going to go to a different town. So I can preach there also. That's wild. Couple things. Let's start off with why Mark is including this. Mark is including this to let us know, let his hearers know the type of ministry that Jesus was intending on having. Jesus was not there to have people come to him and travel from all to be healed. He wasn't. He was the focal point of Jesus's ministry was not the healing. Look at what he says here. Let us go somewhere else to nearby villages so I can preach there also. That is why I've come. Mark is letting his hearers know that Jesus' ministry was primarily not supposed to be a healing ministry. Was not supposed to be primarily a demon casting out ministry. He says, let me go there to preach. Jesus' ministry was a preaching ministry. Jesus' message was more important than the miracles. And so Jesus could have stayed in Capernaum and had a healing ministry, a demon casting out ministry. But he says, no, that's not what I've come for. I've come to preach. And yes, I'm going to heal. I'm going to cast out demons. But I'm doing that to give authority to my preaching, to back up what I say. I'm not here just to be a healer, just to become a famous healer. And so how does that apply to us? Well, think about the people. You wonder, well, why doesn't Jesus heal everybody? Why isn't Jesus healing me? Well, it's not got Jesus' will to maybe to heal you. Jesus leaves people in Capernaum who are sick, who are crippled, who are demon possessed, and he goes to another town because he didn't come here to have a healing ministry. And when he healed, it wasn't always just for the sake of the person being healed. He healed them to bring glory to himself, to show people who he was. That's the purpose of his healings. And so whenever God works a miracle in our life, yes, it is for our benefit, but it is always for the benefit of his kingdom. And he is looking to the benefit of his kingdom. How is that miracle going to bring glory and honor to himself? How is that miracle going to draw people to him? That is the thing. That is why he does miracles. He's not doing miracles for the sake of doing miracles. He's not healing for the sake of healing. This is a supplement. This is supplementary to his preaching ministry. The preaching is what he came to do. And what was the preaching? The preaching was the gospel. The gospel of what he is going to go to the cross to do. He is already setting the foundation preaching to prepare people for when he goes to the cross. So he goes in there. So he traveled throughout Galilee, preaching in synagogues and driving out demons. So he went to different towns and started doing the same thing. But the point of it was always that the first thing I'm going to do is preach in the synagogues. And then the preaching ministry came first. So for us, our ministries don't need to be just healing ministries. And if you're going somewhere and everything is about healing, that even Jesus did the most healing of anybody, and his ministry was not about healing. It was about the gospel. The healings was just supportive of the gospel. So if you're going somewhere and everything is about healing, everything is about prophecy, even Jesus's ministry, that was not the purpose of it. The purpose of it was preaching. The purpose of it was to preach the gospel. And if your mindset of Christianity is I'm here for the healing, you're just like all the people that bum rushed the door. They weren't here for the right reasons. Jesus is here for the preaching. And that is something that not trying to elevate, I'm a preacher, and not trying to just elevate preaching, but this is what Jesus says. He says, so I can preach there also. I've come to preach. That is what I've come to do. I've come to preach. And I've come to preach the gospel and be the gospel. So, with that, be wary of healing ministries. Anyhow. Listen, guys. Man, thank y'all so much for the support of the channel. Thank y'all so much for just all the views, the likes, the comments. Keep those coming. Again, this is something that I believe in. I'm doing this because I want people excited about Scripture. I'm excited about Scripture, and I want people excited about Scripture. And that's why I'm doing this. And I want that excitement to be contagious. So if these Bible studies have been valuable to you, you have found value in them, you have learned something, share them. I would love for you to share them and share them with a comment like, hey, this is a Bible study from my pastor, blah, 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 whatever you want to say about it. But I would love for you to share it. I'd be honored if you would share it, and definitely like, subscribe, all the things that YouTubers talk about doing. And hey, I'm looking forward to seeing y'all next week for another Then and Now Bible study. Love y'all, and see y'all later.